Federal investigators are preparing to bring accusers of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs before a federal grand jury, two sources familiar with the probe tell CNN, signaling the U.S. Justice Department is moving toward potentially seeking an indictment of Combs. Possible witnesses have been notified by investigators that they could be brought in to testify in front of a federal grand jury in New York City, according to one source. Bringing individuals who have filed civil lawsuits against Combs before a grand jury would mark a significant escalation in the government's ongoing investigation involving the producer and Bad Boy Records founder. Combs has been named in 8 civil lawsuits since November, 7 directly accusing him of sexual assault. One of the 8 lawsuits, filed by former girlfriend Cassie Ventura, has been settled. A spokesperson for the Homeland Security Investigations Agency, she declined to comment on the existence of a grand jury, but noted the investigation remains ongoing. These potential witnesses have not yet been prepped for testimony, both sources told CNN, cautioning that investigators are still in the process of gathering evidence and questioning potential sources of information in their federal probe into Combs. One source said investigators are being thorough and taking their time to ensure that an indictment, should there be one, is bulletproof. Grand juries comprised of ordinary citizens are critical tools used by prosecutors, providing both an investigative function in approving the subpoenaing of documents and witnesses, and a vote on whether to criminally charge suspects. The use of a grand jury signals a particular case has moved beyond the preliminary stage where investigators generally assess whether possible violations of the law are believed to have been committed. Federal investigators are now digging deeper, and some of the accusers have been questioned numerous times, a source said. A second source corroborates this current state of the investigation. Accusers who have spoken to federal agents during the investigation have been actively cooperating with investigators, with some handing over evidence they believe may be helpful in the probe, one source said. Investigators are also bringing in new individuals for questioning, including corroborating witnesses of accusers. Federal agents are in possession of video taken inside of Combs' recently searched residences, a source said. It's unclear whether the video was seized during the raids, or whether investigators obtained video from individuals they have been questioning. They are contacting people that they've found on the tapes, a source told CNN. At least one male sex worker, who claims he has been victimized by Combs, has been questioned during the investigation, one source said, adding that this individual was seen in footage that is in possession of the federal investigators. In some of the lawsuits against Combs, accusers have alleged that they were informed, after the fact, that they were recorded having sex without giving their consent to be filmed. Combs has not responded to this specific accusation, but he dismissed all alleged wrongdoing in a blanket denial he posted in December 2023.
So to the lay person, it seems as if this investigation is dragging. It is not moving, but in essence, it's moving along, according to CNN. Now, here's what TMZ reported on P. Diddy.
So a grand jury will shortly convene in the Diddy investigation, and it could lead to really serious criminal charges against this disgraced mogul.
Which would be the very first criminal charges that Diddy has faced in all of this that has been going on for the last few months. And it is looking like the feds are really... So you understand, they don't convene a grand jury until they've got their ducks in a row. So this means, if you're Diddy, this means that they at least have spoken to enough people that they believe they have enough evidence for an indictment. Now, we'll see whether they do.
I should say that there is another scenario, and we're going to be talking to a guy who knows his stuff in this area. But there's another scenario. There's such a thing as an investigative grand jury, where what they do is they want to see what the evidence is, but they can't necessarily call all the witnesses they want because the witnesses don't have to cooperate with prosecutors.
Right.
So what they do in an investigative grand jury is they subpoena them, and they're required to talk, and then the prosecutors can use the information to say, do we have a charge here or not, or do we want to go forward? So that's the other way of looking at this.
There was a report in CNN, though, that says that they have, they being the federal prosecutors, have interviewed several witnesses, that they have interviewed several witnesses in preparation for this grand jury, which makes me feel like they are very far down the road in their investigation.
I think this is probably why they're doing it. Now, they will bring in some of the accusers who have already come forward publicly. They may bring in others that haven't, but I would be stunned if Cassie is not among the witnesses who testify here.
Right.
I mean, she would seem to be a central figure in this grand jury probe.
Yeah, and think about it. There's Cassie, who you're right, would be a central figure. There are 7 other lawsuits besides Cassie's where people have made allegations. Almost anyone in those lawsuits would be.
They may call all of them.
Would be.
As you come on to the page, kindly hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. And don't forget to put on your notification bell so you can be notified when I drop the next video. Thank you.
Yeah,
They may call all of those
get
people.
called
I
in.
mean, as you stated, Harvey, I mean, our law enforcement sources have confirmed that a grand jury has been convened in the case. Witnesses and accusers will be testifying for the grand jury, and other evidence will be presented. Currently, according to our sources,
So we are listening currently to a lawyer who updated TMZ on his findings.
Diddy is being investigated by the feds for sex trafficking, narcotics trafficking, and firearms offenses. As you said, this could all lead to a potential criminal indictment that could send Diddy to prison for a very long time. So these are potentially very serious charges that Diddy faces.
Yep. The question, where are the feds right now in the investigation? What are the chances that this grand jury will hand down an indictment? And what does it mean for Diddy?
Someone who has been through this process as a former federal prosecutor, Andrew Cherkasky. He is joining us right now just to talk about what is going on at the Southern District of New York as they prepare for this grand jury. Andrew, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you. And things couldn't be getting worse for Diddy here. I think this is a turn of events that is essentially a nightmare scenario for him. So a lot to unpack here.
Why don't we start with why did the prosecutors choose a grand jury rather than just outright charging him?
Well, a grand jury has an important function in a federal criminal case in essentially a requirement to have this grand jury meet in order to vote to have a indictment on many of these charges. And so they are going to essentially take evidence and through that evidence either decide to indict or return what's called a no bill, which essentially says that there wasn't enough evidence. I have almost never seen a federal prosecutor bring a case to a grand jury and that result in a no bill.
In legal terminology, a no bill is a decision by a grand jury that there is not enough evidence to charge someone with a crime. This means that the person will not be accused of any wrongdoing and the charges will be dropped by the prosecution. A grand jury may also issue a true bill if they believe there is enough evidence to charge someone with a crime.
So they say that it's as easy as anything that can be done in the law, and when federal prosecutors get themselves involved in a grand jury, the expectation overwhelmingly is that there will be an indictment.
Diddy's team is not there. They don't have any say.
They can't be there.
They're not there, and the grand jurors are kept very secret. But once the indictment, if they go forward, and as you say, they normally do get an indictment, after that is done, what's the next step for them? And do you anticipate, from your knowledge in putting together these cases, Cassie has to be someone that they want to bring in? If not, what reason would they have to not have Cassie sit for the grand jury?
Well, see, so the grand jury itself is technically non-adversarial, although it's highly biased, because like you said, Diddy and his team are not allowed to be there. Now, he is invited generally to make a statement, although that almost never happens. You take your right to remain silent and you keep quiet at the grand jury phase. I would think that anybody who's going to be looked at as a true victim, a named victim in this case, will testify or provide some sort of statement to the grand jury. The one outlying kind of consideration here is that the feds have to bring charges that are federally outlawed as opposed to state offenses. And so in order to do that, they're going to have to draw some sort of connection to an interstate commerce, some sort of human trafficking that went from state to state, some sort of financial crime that crossed state borders, or some sort of gun or drug offense that crossed state borders. So that could limit the victim pool, so to say, to a more narrow group of folks. But I think that's the biggest hurdle the feds are going to have to get over here is making it a federal case as opposed to things like a state case, like what we saw in that domestic violence video with Cassie.
That's what I want to get into right now, because the domestic violence video, the statute of limitations is run on that, but that is squarely a state case, a state of California. That's not going to happen because of the statute. However, what I'm wondering is this. Do you think prosecutors are going to try and show that to grand jurors because it is so incendiary that it would almost make it impossible not to indict him? Even though it's a state case, do you think they're going to try to squeeze that in? Because that is something that's hard to look past.
Well, I think they'll absolutely try to use it both in a grand jury and if this moves forward to a trial in some sort of way. Now, you guys know that a evidence that is not charged, other wrongs, crimes, or acts are typically not admissible in order to prove the propensity or the penchant for somebody to commit future or past acts. Exactly. But you can use those uncharged acts to prove some sort of larger motive, a modus operandi, or a general intent, a general demeanor in terms of how he may have behaved around certain individuals. So I think that they're going to make strenuous arguments for that to be considered at just about every stage in this case, assuming they have a loop to bring Cassie into this case, remembering, of course, that it has to be a federally based offense, as opposed to the potential that Cassie is excluded from this case because perhaps it was only state-based offenses. That's kind of the big unknown that I have at this point.
Andrew, I don't know if this is too tentative a connection. In that video, she's leaving the hotel. And what we don't know yet, because she didn't even explain this in her lawsuit, why she was fleeing the hotel. She just described the fact that he went after her, but she did say that one of these freak-off sex parties had gone on the night before. Now, that would be something I think the feds would be interested in. So
if there were people that went across state lines.
Right, if there were people that went across state lines, is that a way that they could get that video relevant to the case that they're presenting?
The closer that video and the actions that we see in that video are connected to a charged crime, the more likely that's coming in. And so if you take kind of the word that the night before, within hours of that event, there was one of these freak-offs, we've heard other information that these freak-offs involved prostitutes or involved drugs, potentially even guns being present. Now we start to see that they might be able to draw a connection to a federal crime there. So if he had paid somebody, perhaps flown them in, and that's what we're seeing in some of these other allegations, is that he was flying people from one location to the next in order to commit future acts such as sexual assault or other types of crimes. So they have to draw that video as close as they can to other crimes that are actually charged to give them the greatest possibility to be able to use that.
What if Cassie is, if there is an indictment and Cassie is listed as a unindicted co-conspirator because she may have participated. She was with Diddy for many, many years. She may have participated in some of these alleged crimes, and she might have an immunity deal. I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point to make, the idea that she was around a lot of this over many years. Now, reading into her past lawsuit and understanding her case as we do at this point, I think that she would have a strong defense to say that she was essentially compelled to be in that position, so less involved as a co-conspirator or as an accomplice to these other crimes. That could be something the defense makes a big deal of, but I have no doubt she'll have her lawyers protect her as best as possible.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
all right.
To be continued. Andrew, thank you. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you, guys.
Wow.
So we are in September, and it looks like if the case is dragging, the indictment is dragging, and everybody's asking what's going on with the P. Diddy case. Well, that's as much as I know concerning this case. Hopefully, in the near future, we can get some more information from either CNN, TMZ, or from the DA's office. On that note, guys, I'm over and out. Don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thanks for watching.